From wind snatching a small plane out of the sky to an explosion that rocked the world. Here are 5 E-3 deadly crashes revealed. The E-3 is one of the most widely used aircraft in the world, with thousands of them flying through our skies every day. It's a workhorse, reliable and safe. But like all machines, it can fail. In some cases, catastrophic failure. The flight was uneventful until it hit severe turbulence at about 37,000 feet. And before anyone knew what happened, they had descended to 11,000 feet. The incident occurred shortly after takeoff from Tehran when the plane started losing altitude. On December 2009, a private Pakistani airline called Air Blue was flying from Karachi to Islamabad when it crashed into a hillside while trying to land at Islamabad International Airport. There were 150 people on board, 149 passengers, and 3 crew members. The incident occurred at around 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Someone saw a large orange flame coming from the number to engine, followed by a loud bang. Shortly after that, the plane broke apart in the air and crashed into a hotel near Paris. A huge fireball erupted from the impact, engulfing everything in its path. It was obvious that the world had just witnessed a disaster of epic proportions. The wreckage was strewn across a wide area, but the biggest pieces fell on the Hotel George, a 4-star hotel in the suburbs of Paris. The hotel was fully engulfed in flames. Everyone in the plane was dead, as were 7 people on the ground. Several others suffered serious injuries. Airplanes don't blow up every day, especially not supersonic airplanes. So nobody could believe what they were seeing. Some people even thought that it was a terrorist attack, but that wasn't the case. After a thorough investigation, officials determined that the most likely cause of the crash was a piece of metal that came off an airplane that had taken off from Newark before the Concorde and landed in the engine. It was most likely a piece of the Boeing 767 that had taken off from New York City before the Concorde. A piece of tire tread from the left-hand main landing gear tire of the Boeing 767 detached and remained on the runway. That piece of tire tread was sucked into the engine of the Concorde, causing the engine to fail. Without the ability to control its speed, the Concorde accelerated and heated up. A spark ignited the fuel, and the next thing they knew, the engine was on fire. The pilot tried to land the plane, but they were too close to the ground and there wasn't enough runway. At this point, the captain knew that they wouldn't make it, so he tried to steer the plane away from the residential area. And that is how the plane ended up in the hotel parking lot instead of in a bunch of houses. Unfortunately, there were no survivors. The plane was a wreck and burst into flames upon impact. Rescue workers descended onto the scene quickly, but everyone on the plane was dead. An inquiry was launched to figure out what caused the crash. The preliminary report indicated that the plane was too low and too slow. The pilots were trying to stabilize the plane when they lost contact with air traffic control, and then they tried to go around, but they were already too low. Investigators think that the pilots were so focused on getting the plane to the correct altitude and speed that they didn't realize how close they were to the ground. They were only 213 feet above the terrain when they should have been at least 1,800 feet up. By the time they realized their mistake, it was too late. Then smoke filled the cockpit and the pilots were forced to land the plane. They made an emergency landing at the Parchin Airport. Luckily, the pilot was able to turn the plane around and land it safely back at the Palma de Mallorca Airport. But the same thing happened again. While the plane was on the runway, one of its engines failed once more. It's rare for something like this to happen, but it's not impossible. One engine failing mid-flight is usually enough to cause concern. 2 engines failing on the same flight is unheard of. What makes this story bizarre is that both engines failed in the same way. They lost all of their rotational speed. Now, this could have been caused by a number of factors, but after looking at the data, investigators were able to determine that the most likely cause was contaminated fuel, specifically water that had entered the fuel lines and caused the engines to seize up. So how did the water get into the fuel? No one knows for sure. But investigators suspect that during refueling, water that had collected at the bottom of the fuel tank was pumped into the plane's engines. But in the meantime, they needed to fix the problem. Apparently, there was a fire in the electronics compartment, so the pilots turned off the battery to the avionics system to try and put out the flames. Once they landed, the passengers were evacuated via an emergency slide. There were no casualties. An investigation was launched to find the cause of the fire. As it turns out, it started in the cargo hold because someone left a lithium battery in the cargo compartment that wasn't properly packaged. Lithium batteries can be dangerous if damaged. If the battery is punctured or exposed to high temperatures, it can catch fire and even explode. And it seems that's exactly what happened in this case. This may not have been an accident. According to the New York Times, the United States believes that Iran shot down the plane accidentally. Apparently, the plane was traveling to Muscat, Oman, where Western intelligence officials believe it was mistaken for an American plane. The plane was heading to a U.S. base in the Middle East. Now, this hasn't been confirmed by any authorities yet, but it sure sounds plausible. The cabin crew were thrown from their seats and several passengers suffered serious injuries. What caused this unexpected turbulence? Well, due to bad weather, the pilots had to divert to another airport. They put out a mayday call as they struggled to regain control of the plane. It took them almost 45 minutes to get the plane back on the ground safely. But unfortunately, there were fatalities. 3 people did not make it, the passengers and 1 flight attendant. After the crash, investigators found out that there was a storm in the area and the plane just flew into it. They could not have predicted such strong turbulence, and neither could the plane's computer systems. This was one of the deadliest accidents involving the Airbus A330. These are the stories of the deadliest accidents involving the Airbus A330. Number 5. The Win. On July 2004, an Airbus A330 was scheduled to fly from Kuala Lumpur International Airport in Malaysia to Shanghai, China. Number 4. Iran. On February 2021, an A330 was flying over Iran when it caught fire after experiencing technical problems. No. 3. Pakistan. No. 2. Spain. On June 2016, a Lufthansa flight was flying from Palma de Mallorca Airport in Spain to Frankfurt Airport in Germany when one of its engines failed. Number 1. France. On July 2005, a Concorde was flying from New York City to Paris when it exploded midair, killing 228 people. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up.